I killed you, and you killed me.
Charlotte, why'd you kill that guy?
Motherfucker, he killed himself!
Disney is dying, and it's easy to see why. Between the back-to-back flops, burning money to supply Disney Plus, and films that just miss the mark, Disney is in trouble. But today, I've got the solution, and the answer that the House of Mouse is looking for is right here on YouTube. Hello, Internet! Welcome to Film Theory, the show that won't charge you $27 million a year to fix your problems. How's that for cost savings there, Bob Iger? Have you noticed that a lot of movies have bombed recently? Fast X underperformed, The Flash is looking like it'll lose $200 million to Warner Brothers, making it the biggest comic book movie bomb ever. Even objectively great films like Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning 1 fell short of expectations this summer. But the biggest victim of the box office bloodbath for the last 2 years has got to be our mouse-eared overlords at Walt Disney Corp. Doctor Strange 2, Thor 3, and Black Panther 2 all came in under expectations. The Little Mermaid vastly underperformed. Both Ant-Man 3 and the new Indiana Jones were also costly losers. No one even remembers Disney's last animated feature film, Strange World, and Elemental had the lowest opening of any modern Pixar film ever, including Lightyear, the massive bomb that was released right before it. The long and short of all of this, things are bad at the House of Mouse right now. Disney shares are at the lowest that they've been since COVID hit back in March of 2020, and to turn it all around, they're considering selling off their TV businesses, spinning off ESPN, laying off thousands of employees. We are truly witnessing the death of the Disney empire happening in real time right now. But I think that there's a way to fix things, and the key to it all is YouTube. So grab your popcorn as I prepare to tell you a story far more compelling than anything's put out over the last few years. It's time to fix Disney in 3 easy steps. But before I help a large soulless corporation earn its millions back, won't you help our small soulful corporation here earn some thousands back? You can help do that by checking out our new line of theory wear. This isn't just merch. These are actual clothes made specifically with you and your life in mind, designed to last for years and created to help you feel amazing. These items are cozy, they're comfortable, but they're also fashionable. Case in point, if you love analog horror, then no-clip your way out of the back rooms and into our hazmat puffer jacket. Never before has biohazard protection been so snuggly. Then pair that puffer with the radioactive backpack to keep all your dangerous bacteria life forms safely contained as you walk the streets. Or if you're looking for some infrared realness, check out the Heat Map collection. Black clothing with intense pops of color. Take your pick of shorts, hoodies, work jackets, even socks. And for the fashion that's truly fire, check out the new thermo-reactive tee and mug, which can both change color as they heat up. But if all of those are a bit too loud for your closet, check out the high-res button-up. On the outside, it looks like your typical high-quality white shirt, but inside, the collar, inner button lining, and cuffs all have a classic Game Theory green high-tech circuit board design. Now, if only it came in red. One day, Film Theory. One day. We have all of this and more at our brand new TheoryWear website, which you should go check out by clicking the link in the description below or by checking out the merch shelf just below this video. Even if you don't want to buy anything, just go check out the site. It's actually really cool with some fun surprises hidden inside of it. This year, we're just really pushing ourselves to do bigger, more interesting things in the style world, probably because we have a fashion channel now. And I think honestly that this is a great first step in that. So go check out all the awesome new fashionable merch that we have on the website. And hey, who knows, maybe one day we'll open up a Theorist store all to ourselves at the local mall. I hear there's quite a few vacant Disney locations that could use some new tenants. Speaking of, let's talk more about that Disney dilemma, shall we? Basically, when you break it all down, Disney's problems largely boil down to 3 major topics: streaming, budget, and story. So let's go through them point by point, starting with streaming. One thing that everyone tends to overlook when they first start a streaming service is that you need a steady flow of content to make it work, to keep people hooked on the platform. And making content tends to be expensive, hence the elongated merch push they just went through. But even if you thread the needle and manage to solve both of those issues, making lots of content for a relatively cheap price, it just opens a well of new issues that are more difficult to solve. Let me explain. To prevent people from bouncing off the platform, most of Disney's star studios have been relegated to content factories to feed the Disney Plus machine. In 2020, Disney held an Investor Day presentation, where they had Marvel and Lucasfilm announce 10 projects each, and Pixar announced another 6. It wasn't all streaming focused, but a whole lot of it was. In addition, the service has been flooded with Disney dipping into all its other major IPs. Live-action remakes of Peter Pan, serialized versions of High School Musical, the return of nostalgic classics like Willow, and the launch of anticipated new IP like Artemis Fowl. Disney owns some of the most beloved IP on the planet, and they've been pulling it all off the shelves to try and keep their content offering on Disney Plus robust, and most importantly, sticky, to keep all those finicky streaming audiences that are quick to cancel a subscription. Despite it being difficult and expensive to stay on that online content treadmill, at least on the surface, it looks like Disney managed to thread the needle. But in achieving that, they've actually exposed themselves to a problem that's far worse: brand dilution. There's no arguing that pretty much every single one of these cherished franchises has become significantly less special over the last 5 years, simply because there's just so much of them around at this point. Toy Story 4, Lightyear, Toy Story 5? You can only go to the pump so many times before the audience can smell a shameless cash grab. Going back to those Investor Day announcements, most of the Star Wars ones, they were quietly canceled. A completely different Episode 9, a Boba Fett solo movie, a trilogy from Rian Johnson, another trilogy from the Game of Thrones guys. When something new from Star Wars gets announced at this point, there's little trust that it's ever gonna see the light of day, and even less trust that it's gonna be good. Andor, for instance, it was legitimately great. Seriously, it was the single best thing that Star Wars has produced in years. But you know why no one watched it? Because it was buried under a slew of underwhelming projects like the Book of Boba Fett, Obi-Wan Kenobi, late season Mandalorian, and Episode 9. People lost trust with the brand, and as a result, deprioritized watching all the new stuff that was rolling out. The MCU is having the exact same issue right now. Look at this. Phase 1 had 746 minutes of content spread over 5 years. Phase 2, 757 minutes spread over 3 years. And then you had Phase 3 at 1,500 minutes spread over another 3 years. That was a pretty significant jump, but it was nothing compared to Phase 4. Thanks in part to the introduction of Disney Plus and the requirement for streaming content, Phase 4 had a staggering 3,500 minutes spread across only 2 years. There's been more MCU content in the last 2 years than the preceding 12 combined. A Marvel release used to feel like an event, like you had to see it. Nowadays, though, it's quite literally a weekly occurrence, so of course people are going to be less excited for new installments like Secret Invasion, regardless of their quality. Don't worry, we're going to address the quality here in a second. What's worse, in their drive to Disney Plus, the mouse has lost out on a lot of money they probably didn't need to. Looking at the list of original films created and released by Disney, so many of them are going straight to Disney Plus without making any money in a theater. This year alone, across all their studios, 6 of the 14 Disney films so far have premiered directly on Disney Plus or Hulu with no additional cost. In 2022, a whopping 27 premiered on streaming and only 16 were in theaters. Now compare all that to 2018, the year before Disney Plus launched, where Disney released only 10 films total, all of which obviously went to the theaters. Not only do these streaming premieres mean that they're losing a lot of money from the theatrical window, but it becomes an even bigger issue when you combine it with our next major problem: budgeting. The budgets for so many modern blockbusters, and especially those made by Disney, are just out of control. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny cost $300 million to make. Guardians 3 and The Little Mermaid, $250 million each. Quantumania, a cool $200 mil. They even spent $150 million on Haunted Mansion. Why would you spend $150 million on a Haunted Mansion movie? And the true number is probably more like $300 million if you include the marketing for it. Even Disney's animation wing isn't safe. Both Encanto and Strange World cost somewhere between $135 and $180 million to make, while almost all of Pixar's latest releases put their budgets between $150 and $200 in range. Now, you might be looking at all those numbers and thinking, wow, that's a lot, but aren't all movies super expensive? And the answer is yes, but also no. Yeah, they cost hundreds of millions of dollars, but not that many hundreds of millions of dollars. When you look at other massive blockbusters currently in theaters, most are not looking like this. Oppenheimer had a massive cast and incredible experimental filmmaking techniques, and it cost just $100 million to make. John Wick 4, elaborate action sequences with top-tier stunt work and incredible set designs at multiple real-world locations, also cost just $100 million. Barbie is the biggest movie of the summer. It has iconic art direction, detailed fictional worlds with real sets, and A-list actors who enjoyed being there, and it was made for less than $150 million. Over on the animation side, the newly released Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie cost $70 million, while Puss in Boots: The Last Wish and Across the Spider-Verse and the Super Mario Bros. Movie were all at about $100 mil each. All of these are half to a third of what Disney is paying to make their movies, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand that it's a lot easier to get back what you put in when you're only $70 million in the hole as opposed to $200 million. All of this begs the question of why though? Why are these movies so expensive? Well, it's complicated and it ultimately comes down to a lot of different factors. actors, an over-reliance on CGI, a push to develop new technologies, writing that just doesn't keep budgets in mind. But one of the biggest contributors to the inflation of a movie's budget over at Disney that a lot of people don't talk about are reshoots. A reshoot is where a film brings back the cast and crew to refilm scenes that didn't work, or to film new scenes that become needed as they get into the editing process. Don't get me wrong, reshoots are a perfectly normal part of production, and they can really help bring a movie together. A lot of very successful films have had reshoots. Back to the Future, E.T., Rocky, that's not the sort of stuff I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about is when a movie studio sees the rough cut of a movie, gets cold feet, and then suddenly decides they basically need to start over from scratch. Probably the most famous example of this was with Zack Snyder's Justice League, but Disney, they too have been guilty of this a lot lately. Most publicly with Solo: A Star Wars Story. Originally, that movie was directed by Phil Lord and Chris Miller, the two guys behind Spider-Verse and the Lego Movie. But